What ruined religion for you? Going to a megachurch. They received over $1 million in donations every weekend and spent it on elaborate props and videos rather than helping the community in any meaningful way. I was taken to a megachurch once for a Christmas thing, and the very first thing I saw upon entering was a life-size bronze statue of the pastor. All I could think was, isn't this a false idol? Do they decapitate it and make a new head every time the pastor changes? Or do they buy a whole new statue? Neither, because the pastor owns the church. When I was 6 years old, the pastor gave a letter to my aunt to give to my mom saying that we were not donating enough money to the church. So we stopped going, and I have never been to church since. Something like this happened to my friend's grandma. The church wrote her a letter basically saying they knew how much money she was making and that she should be giving more to the church. Her response was, "Screw you guys, I'm moving to Mexico." Honestly, the balls on these churches. Religion is big business. Tax-free to boot. Being told that being sexually abused as a child was a good thing as God needed to teach me a lesson on hubris and ego. I should accept it as a lesson and be better so I wouldn't fall into the clutches of the devil. I was 7. Apparently I was asking for it. The non-answers to all my questions as a kid. You just have to have faith is a dumb way to respond to an inquisitive mind. When I was a kid, I asked my grandmother where God came from, and she smacked me across the face and said, "We don't ask questions like that." I was just being honestly curious because I wanted to understand, and her reaction shocked me. That's where it all started for me. LMFAO, I asked my pastor how you reconcile a human-centric creation theory with hundreds of millions of years of non-human life? Was God just screwing around making dinosaurs and massive ecologies as a warm-up before humans? Pastor said he believed in the pan theory when it came to that. Excited, I asked what that was. Live for Jesus and everything else will pan out. Lol. Oh yeah, my preacher spoke very negatively about education and he had a damn master's degree. He also believed dinosaur bones were placed by God to separate the believers and non-believers, so he was pretty much a dumbass anyways. I worked at a restaurant near a church on Sundays. Rudest bunch of people ever. Edit, thank you for the likes and awards. Some people believe that being religious makes them better than non-religious. When I left the church I was persona non grata, none of the members will even look at me now. Oh well. There is this really popular Christian radio station my parents listened to when I was younger, and when the hosts were talking about some Christian gathering they referred to non-believers as icky people. I was so annoyed. At the time I was still religious and kept thinking, what if someone who didn't believe was checking this out for the first time? I am very much not religious now, but back then it really opened my eye to how shitty people were. My mother used to say, sitting in church make you a Christian as much as sitting in a garage makes you a car. Religious people seem to think once they convert, they become perfect and can look down upon us evil heathens. They forget what Jesus taught about love, understanding and compassion. Even worse in my opinion are the ones saying, unless you give your money to the church it isn't an actual tithe. If I hand my 10% to a poor family struggling to eat, how is that not better than handing it over to a corporation? I don't need a tax cut, so why not put it directly into the hands of a family that could use it? Side note, I never give people cash. I find out what they need most and get them that. If they don't have enough to eat, I get them food. If the kids need winter coats, I get them that. That to me is doing what should be done, not building bigger buildings so the faithful may worship in more comfortable surroundings. Religious leaders ruined religion for me. I never met a single priest who could tell me about heaven, but they all knew every inch too of hell. They built it. My mother. She instilled some serious shame into me under the guise of God. Some things she said, not allowed to believe in Santa because that takes credit away from God. Santa was actually a hand of Satan trying to corrupt me, not allowed to believe in the Easter Bunny because it was also a hand of Satan trying to corrupt me away from Jesus. I wasn't allowed to feel pride in my accomplishments because it's a sin. I was a dickhead because my dad got me fully vaccinated as a child, and that is against God's plan. Hollywood is operated by Satan, so I wasn't allowed to watch movies or shows, especially Disney. Harry Potter was an absolute no because witchcraft is an affront to God. Scientists should not be trusted under any circumstances. My rare genetic condition was part of God's plan, and I'd understand someday. Not allowed to say damn because it's an affront to God, etc. That combined with irregular, not religious abuse has left me struggling a lot with my religiosity. It quickly became evident that many people who call themselves religious only do so to feel morally superior to others around them, and then use that superiority to try to control everything they can. I like to say that Jesus was a carpenter who gave his followers a hammer to build with. They took the hammer and started hitting other people with it. I see this behavior in my kids a lot. I'll ask them to do something, individually, then for some godforsaken reason they'll try telling each other that they need to do it, then naturally come tattling on each other to me, at which point I'll explain again that I didn't ask them to police each other, I asked each of them to do the thing on their own. Rinse and repeat. Seeing how people use religion as an excuse to be shitty people around the world. So many people just bend their interpretation of a religion to fit whatever they want. So many things, but the final straw for me was my church asking a homeless man to leave and not come back. He would sit and listen to the sermons, never bothered anyone, and always sat in the very back. I confronted my youth group leader and she defended the preacher. I hear stuff like this all the time and it's so infuriating, like what the duck? Doesn't the Bible, doesn't your God, teach you to be kind and loving and selfless, to love people no matter what? I've only ever met one church leader, pastor whatever, in my entire life who lived by those teachings. I met him when I had already separated from religion, but he was truly a man of God if there ever was one. He was what Christianity should look like. He loved everyone, every single person, equally and unequivocally. His church was always open, to everyone from all walks of life. He fed anyone who was hungry. Would literally give you the clothes off his back if you needed them. Offered wisdom and guidance and counseling services. Never tried to push religion on you, just made you feel loved and accepted no matter what. His church was a haven to the homeless. He ran breakfasts every Saturday, cooked huge meals all the time, had gatherings on holidays, and let the homeless use the church for recreation, shelter, food, water, amenities. I don't think it'd have such of an issue with Christianity as a practice if more Christians were like him. Wow. I have only met one man like this, out of my whole devout Christian family and former life as a devout Christian. It was my great uncle, who had a cleft palate and would lead the choir. He was there to worship, not to sound good. He used to go to local colleges to sit on benches and listen to distressed students and pray for him. I cried so hard at his funeral, because he was my only safe haven in that hypocritical family, and he was the only good man I knew on that side. He was truly a saint. The fact that if you're not in my religion, you're kinda ducked in the afterlife. I didn't choose my religion, so what makes me so special? Reminds me of something I read on Wikipedia about Mel Gibson. When asked about the Catholic doctrine of extra ecclesiam nulla salus, Gibson replied, "There is no salvation for those outside the church, I believe it. Put it this way. My wife is a saint. She's a much better person than I am. Honestly. She's Episcopalian, Church of England. She prays, she believes in God, she knows Jesus, she believes in that stuff. And it's just not fair if she doesn't make it, she's better than I am. But that is a pronouncement from the chair. I go with it." However, Gibson later told Diane Sawyer that he believes non-Catholics and non-Christians can go to heaven. Not like it matters to me because I do not believe in afterlife, but wow. People actually believe that their benevolent God will refuse good people because they had another faith. When I was sexually assaulted by another boy and I spoke to my pastor because I was afraid to tell my family. He asked me what I did to make the other kid have impure thoughts and tried to make it out to be my fault. That was the exact moment I lost what little faith I had to begin with. I was surprised to have to scroll this far to find the weird sex stuff. Mine was a child molester that was a youth group volunteer. He molested several children, all boys, and the church decided that they wouldn't do anything except say he couldn't work with kids anymore. I distinctly remember them talking about it during a service, and I looked back at the guy sitting in the pews and he was smirking. Ducking disgust is all I feel when someone talks about their religion. How agonizingly long and tedious Mass was as a Roman Catholic kid. Stand up, sing. Sit down. Then kneel. Then stand again. Sing again. Sit down. Stand up. Kneel and pray. Then 30 minutes of droning from the robed guy at the front. Then stand up and sing. Sit down. Stand up. WTF, please make this end. When I was 12, my father pulled me aside and said, "Son, you are old enough to decide about religion. I wanted to give you a chance to experience religion. If you want to keep going to church, you can, but it's also okay if you don't want to go anymore." I said, "Okay, I don't want to go anymore." My father said, "Okay, me too." And that was that. Your dad seemed like an amazing guy. Props to him. I wish my parents were as accepting as that.